Hello and a warm welcome. You're watching an India Today special. In a few days from now, the Modi government completes 2 years in power. Over the next 1 hour, we will take you through the findings of the India Today editorial board ranking of Modi ministers, the stars and the strugglers of Team Modi. I'm joined in the India Today Mediaplex by my colleague and India's finest political journalist, Rajdeep Sardesai. With us also at this time from Bengaluru is our editorial director of publishing, Raj Chingappa. He and his team have worked on putting these ratings together. Also with us on this show is Siddharth Vardarajan. And last but not least, Chandan Mitra. We're trying very hard to get him to speak more as a journalist, not as a BJP MP. He says he's conflicted, but we'll see how it goes. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us. What I'll do first is take you through the stars of Team Modi. We'll take you through the ministers India Today believes are the star performers, the best performers. And right at the top of the pack is Nitin Gadkari, coming in with 4.5 out of 5. Remember, 5 is the maximum any minister could have scored. India Today believes that Nitin Gadkari is Narendra Modi's top performing minister, the Minister for Transport. He's done a very good job when it comes to finding innovative ways of moving finance, commissioning projects. Amongst the lows, as far as India Today is concerned, is the fact that he yet hasn't been able to hit the target of 30 kilometers per day. Raj Chingappa, to you first. What's the rationale behind picking Nitin Gadkari as one of the top performing ministers of the Modi government?
Well, he certainly heads a key ministry, and his performance as compared to the previous government when they do about 3 kilometers, he's boosted that considerably. He's also very innovative in the way he's gone about giving contracts and others, cut down delay to an extra, considerable extent. And he's a minister that, among the others, seems to have it all there. He knows what he wants to do. He gets it done quickly, cuts through red tape. It's good to have him around.
He's very different. He's a CEO in some senses, Rajdeep. He takes quick decisions, not worried about bureaucratic protocol, and wants to roll things out quickly.
I call him the Sharad Pawar of this government. Very similar.
Will he like that or not like that?
I think he'd like that because they are businessmen politicians. They are political entrepreneurs. So they want to get, as you said, the job done. And I think that's the success of Nitin Gadkari, that he, unlike many other ministers who are constantly looking over their shoulder to see whether they have the Prime Minister's approval or not, Mr. Gadkari
Why not? Why does he not need to look behind his shoulder?
Well, you could argue that he believes that he derives a lot of power from his proximity to the RSS, to Nagpur, but I think more than that, it's just the kind of person he is. Even when he was in Maharashtra, when he was Minister for Roads and Highways, the Mumbai-Pune project, for example, was his brainchild. He went ahead with it. Remember, there have been charges from time to time that he has helped particular developers, particular companies, and there will be this charge against him of cronyism. It does come. It's come against Mr. Pawar also. But nobody can deny that both Mr. Gadkari and Mr. Pawar represent a kind of pragmatic view of politics that many believe is the only way to run a government.
Siddharth Vardarajan, would you agree India Today putting Narendra Modi, putting Nitin Gadkari at the top of the pack when it comes to Modi's ministers?
I think there's no doubt that he's among the best performers in a rather mediocre or underperforming bunch. But I would say that you've been rather too generous with your score of 4.5 out of 5, because there's been a lot of hype and exaggeration about the increase in road building. If you actually compare the data, and we ran a story in The Wire a couple of days ago, actually, in the context of Arvind Panagaria's a piece saying that the Modi government has hugely boosted infrastructure. The data is that under Mr. Gadkari, 14.3 kilometers a day are being built. In the UPA, the last 2 years, it was 13.7. So it's an improvement, but an improvement of about half a kilometer a day, which is a far cry from the public perception that there's been some massive expansion in road building. So I think that, yes, he deserves to be at the top of the pile.
Number of roads being constructed, or the amount of roads being constructed every day, is just slightly more than earlier. It's not as if it's jumped up to 30 kilometers. So perception, we're seeing Siddharth Vardarajan argue, is better than reality. Right. Yeah. Let Chandan respond.
Well, this is my favorite subject because I travel a lot and travel in a car driving myself. And I recently went on a complete circumambulation of India and traveled down the national highways from north to south and back to Delhi. I must tell you, and I have done this before, that there's been a sea change. The roads are good, and where there are new infrastructures are needed, they are coming up. They're coming up at a rapid pace. But in Mr. Gadkari's favor, I would like to also point out that a visionary scheme of national waterways, and on this work has started. It is an old British time project, but now the dredging work has begun in Allahabad, the Allahabad to Haldia, and similar 6 projects have started, and I think this is going to completely transform.
From Nitin Gadkari, we now come to Piyush Goyal, again from Maharashtra, again getting 4.5 out of 5 in the India Today's editorial board's rankings. Power deficit under him has come down from 4.2 to 2.1%. There are quick, transparent auctions taking place. Coal import is reduced. 24,000 crore rupees in forex have been saved, and therefore India Today believes he comes in at 4.5, the same ranking as Nitin Gadkari. These two people, Raj Chingappa, have often been spoken of in industry and on the street as being the star performers. The problem is they don't like the tag. They say the moment you make it seem as if we're doing a lot of work, the unsaid thing is that the others aren't doing any work at all. So they don't like the tag of being star performers publicly, even though they'd love it privately.
But, you know, you have to admit that Piyush Goyal has taken, for instance, look at the way he's revolutionized LED usage in all our homes. It's one of the largest schemes in the world. And he's tech savvy. You ask him at any point, what is the current amount of LED bulbs? He's got it on his computer, on his mobile, and he'll read it off that. I mean, this is an example of how a ministry should be run. And I think that's why he's young, he's energetic, he's all there. And if you look at the statistics as what he's done, the transparency that he's brought about in this ministry, he's handled the entire coal thing very well. We'd give him full marks. I mean, we've dropped it a little bit. He's still got a couple of more things to do.
Rajdeep, but if you speak to somebody in the Congress, they'd say it's Jyotiraditya Scindia, who was Power Minister in the last years of the UPA, actually began the process which is now yielding results. And they say that Piyush Goyal is basking of reflected glory.
I think that's again only partly true. I think Piyush Goyal and Nitin Gadkari have to be seen as doers. With Piyush Goyal and Nitin Gadkari also, the marketing is very good. I mean, both of them are out there selling their statistics constantly. Piyush Goyal is someone who came first in a banking exam, in a tough banking exam many years ago. He knows how to market himself. Having said that, he has done a good job. Let's not deny it. Whether part of it was the legacy of the UPA is an argument you could make all the time. The problem is that the reality on the ground also is in a sector like power. You also need the state distribution boards to get their act together. That hasn't happened. So for all your arguments about power generation, about LED revolution, the fact is distribution is still a crisis. Most of the Vidyut boards in this country, state Vidyut boards, are in deep financial crisis. And I don't think Mr. Piyush Goyal today has any immediate quick fix solution. So I think, let's be clear, a lot of these projects in infrastructure are going to take time to fructify. So they can bask in their glory today, but come tomorrow, they may well find that the statistics don't match the reality on the ground.
But Siddharth, the reality also is that under the UPA, we had the coal scam, 1.86 lakh crore rupees. Now, all auctions are transparent. From being in a deficit, we're now going into a surplus situation. By 2019, Piyush Goyal is confident that India will not have a power problem at all. Those are significant achievements, and surely some of them go to the minister's credit.
No, undoubtedly. I think that the power sector is a sector which has definitely had an upturn. Again, I would add a caveat, though, that some of the claims don't mirror what's happening on the ground, right? The rural electrification claims in Uttar Pradesh, for example, where you had Samarth Bansal writing in the Hindu about how 7,000 villages which had claimed to be electrified were actually not. So there are problems, and there's plenty of legacy issues too. The entire crisis with coal-fired and gas-fired stations, thanks to the way in which these projects were structured, the ultra-mega power plants in the past under the UPA. So there is a legacy issue, but I would agree with Raj that the transparency that Piyush has introduced, the app, for example, the Power Ministry's app, these are very nice, sensible innovations that kind of bring the consumer, the average citizen who is the consumer of power, a bit closer to what the government is trying to do. So I think in that sense it's positive.
Chandan, the reality also is that even at this time, hydro projects worth 4,341 megawatts are stuck. 50% of the total gas-based power projects in the country are still stuck. So while there have been certain achievements, the problems still remain huge.
Well, hydro, there's no water in the country right now. You know very well. All our reservoirs are bone dry, and till the monsoons arrive, we don't know how much the rivers can revive in a short while. Gas, yes, but the gas, there are enormous problems. enormous problems of, locating and then extracting gas, the pricing and so on. But I think on the whole, it has been managed very well. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. The power shortages are almost a thing of the past.
I now come to the minister coming in at number 3, the 62-year-old Railways Minister Suresh Prabhu, who thinks of himself as a technocrat. Amongst his highs are the fact that decision-making now is much faster in the railways than earlier. Several innovative finance schemes have been introduced which reduce dependence on freight. There are better hygiene standards. But Raj Chingappa, the question is, if you travel in a railways, whether it's the speed at which your train travels, whether it's the general level of cleanliness, whether it's the food that's being served, things haven't dramatically improved. And yet, India Today believes that Suresh Prabhu is one of the top ministers of the Modi government.
There is plenty of malice in the railways. But I think what Suresh Prabhu has done in the first year, he was like what Rajdeep used earlier, a CEO. He had his plans very well laid out. And in the second, he's gone about it with a kind of a business-like approach. And if you look at his ministry, we use the word transparency for Piyush, you could say that of him. Transfers, postings, this was the holy grail for the railways department. He's cut that out completely. So you've seen, in terms of corruption, apparently it's much, much less. The second thing I think he's done is in terms of the industrial corridors, he's speeded up a lot of that, he's cut out red tape. It's still a long way to go, but we'll give him marks for handling a tough ministry.
Marks for handling a tough ministry, or would you rather see actual tangibles when it comes to takeaways from a passenger's point of view? Not much has changed in the railways, Rajdeep.
Rahul, I think you've got to contrast him with what came before him. Between Lalu, Mamta and a Pawan Bansal, the fact was the railways was completely politicized and many would say destroyed. Therefore, Suresh Prabhu has faced a very difficult legacy, much as Piyush Goyal faced in the context of the manner in which coal auctions were being, the coal scam took place in the previous government. Compared to that, Suresh Prabhu is a standout. And I think the thing that unites all the three individuals you've spoken about so far, Gadkari, Piyush Goyal and Suresh Prabhu, is A, they understand business. He was the youngest director of a bank, managing director of Saraswat Bank. But more than that, they are men in a hurry. They are constantly at it. They are, this is a government where you have some horses who are running at a terrific pace and others who are typical Indian politicians who believe that we've got 5 years. Suresh Prabhu, Nitin Gadkari, Piyush Goyal at least have to their credit that they are constantly at, trying to improve systems. It's not easy. There's still a financial mess in the railways, and it's going to take a long time to get the railways back on track.
Okay, I need to move very quickly so that we can cover all the ministers that we have in the Modi cabinet. I now come to Arun Jaitley. India Today is calling him one of the panchatantras of the Modi government, giving him 4 out of 5, the Minister for Finance and Corporate Affairs. To his credit, India Today believes sticking to fiscal discipline, pushing through legislations like the bankruptcy, mining and insurance bills. The lows are that detractor Subramaniam Swamy has been inducted into the Rajya Sabha, slow in taking action on NPAs of public sector banks. Now, Raj, the fact that Subramaniam Swamy is in the Rajya Sabha, how does that fall as a low for poor Mr. Arun Jaitley?
Well, I think that Prime Minister Modi can answer. But let's look at seriously, let's look at the economy. This is an economy that is growing for all apparent purposes at 7.6%. It's kept inflation low. There are tough questions about NPA and banks. That's legacy issues. And if you look at the overall investment climate, that again, you have to look internationally as well. It's pretty tepid, the growth rates. As compared to that, India is looking very good. They're able to, I think in some senses, as you'd mentioned, the fiscal prudence, despite putting a large amount of money into infrastructure, also into the farm sector. He made one of the largest investments in the farm sector during this budget. He has still kept it within the manageable levels, and that I think he needs to be applauded for.
Okay, Siddharth Bardarajan believes that Arun Jaitley's ratings are hugely inflated. Why do you have a problem with the rating that India Today has given, Siddharth?
We shouldn't be kind of overly influenced by numbers that appear to be very impressive. Raj mentioned the increase in the expenditure for agriculture, but once you correct that for the fact that a large chunk of that was simply readjusting the interest subvention for agriculture, moving it from one from one department to the other, the actual increase in agriculture is hardly much to tom-tom about. And then you look at the inadequate allocations for Narega, various other fronts, various other heads of expenditure. I don't think Mr. Jaitley is pushing enough public investment into the economy, and given the fact that growth is an issue, employment generation is an issue, not to speak of the banking crisis, I think we have problems that we are not confronting, quite frankly.
Okay, let Chandan Mitra respond to that. The banking sector is in deep crisis. There are several international reports coming out about how acute the loan crisis in India really is, and the fact that whatever growth is happening is jobless. There aren't those many jobs being created. We have a very real demographic problem on our hands, which so far the Finance Minister, Mr. Mitra, hasn't been able to address. How do you respond?
No, I don't agree at all. You see, he is battling this legacy of these wasteful socialist years. The socialist years and the kind of freebies that were doled out during successive Congress and other BJP regimes in Manrega and other schemes like that. Now these have to be first rolled back. That money which his government is investing, and he continues, Mr. Jaitley continues to invest, but they must be invested in building sort of long-term durable projects. And that is the emphasis of the government, which he has initiated. This banks, NPAs, again a legacy of the past, when banks were treated as, you know, the Munim ji and just chits written from concerned ministries to give X crony capitalist so much money and Y capitalist something else. Now this has to be reversed.
Rajdeep, would you agree that the few things Jaitley hasn't been able to achieve is also because the opposition hasn't been supportive? If it had been, then the record would have been much better than it actually is.
Look, on that issue, I think Mr. Jaitley will only have to then go back to the statements that he made in Parliament itself when he was the opposition leader in the Rajya Sabha, and would effectively say that blocking Parliament was a legitimate tactic of any opposition. That's exactly what the Congress has done. Legislative gridlock is a problem that this government has faced. I think with Arun Jaitley there are two ways to look at it, Rahul. Either you can say that Arun Jaitley within the constraints has done a fine job in achieving an element of macroeconomic stability, or you can say that Arun Jaitley is a classic case of a missed opportunity because he hasn't been adventurous enough, despite the fact that he has had what Swaminathan Iyer put as Achhe Sitare. The fact that oil prices were at an all-time low and have remained so for a long time, he could have used that bandwidth to be a little bit more risk-taking. And I think if you meet financial experts in Mumbai, they say, why does the finance minister also have to be the INB minister? Why does he have to? He should be 24/7 finance. The other view, of course, is that Mr. Jaitley, like the other ministers, was burdened in a sense with troubling statistics, both globally and domestically, when he came into, and has done a reasonable job.
Okay.
He's been a good defensive batsman. I'm waiting to see him actually play the kind of shots that he likes to see, a good cover drive, a good lofted shot. He hasn't done it.
You speak to him ever about cricket? He loves cricket. He says, I like test cricket, not so much T20.
I sometimes think he likes cricket more than finance.
Let's now come to the performers. So we're moving out of the Panchtantra. We're taking you through now the performers. We're now taking you through the Spectrum star, Ravi Shankar Prasad. India Today has given him 3.5 out of 5. The Minister for Communication and Information Technology. To his credit, a record 1.1 lakh crore rupees collected from the Spectrum auction last year. BSNL, which was earlier hugely in loss, now a profit-making enterprise. When the negatives are concerned, the National Fibre Network, which is a vital part of Digital India, is delayed and is unlikely to meet the December 2016 deadline. After Ravi Shankar Prasad, I come to Mrs. Congeniality, Sushma Swaraj, coming in at 3 out of 5 as far as India Today is concerned. She's managed to carve a space in the foreign ministry despite the Prime Minister's very strong hold over every aspect of foreign policy. As far as lows are concerned, revelations last June that she helped disgraced cricket administrator Lalit Modi get travel documents. One of the other performers is firefighter Manohar Parrikar, our Raksha Mantri. He again has got 3 out of 5, the Minister of Defence. As far as the highs are concerned, bringing down the price of 36 Rafale jets from 11.6 billion euros to 7.8 billion euros. As far as the lows are concerned, delays in the release of complete defence procurement procedure for 2016, vital for purchase of new arms. And as India Today says in its write-up, if there was a prize for good intentions, Defence Minister Parrikar would win it hands down. But the reality, Mr. Chingappa, is good intentions don't necessarily lead to a good government. Parrikar hasn't been able to get things done as far as defence purchases are concerned, and that's a problem. There's great intentions, but what about the delivery?
Well, you know, with defence purchases has always been tricky with every government, and now increasingly with Augusta Westland, you're going to get a blowback. So, it's understandable that this government is going to be very cautious and not be, hurled with accusations from the opposition on this. But the other factor I think you must give him credit for, we haven't put him in the Panchratna category for the other reasons that, what you had mentioned. You still have a lot, he still has a long way to go. But during his tenure, he's also sorted out this one rank, one pension, a very vexatious issue, difficult to sort out. So let's give him credit there as well.
Okay, Siddharth Vardarajan, India Today giving Sushma Swaraj 3 out of 5. They're also saying that the Prime Minister has a huge hold over foreign policy and therefore whatever may have happened, whether it's China, whether it's Nepal, whether it's Pakistan, you can't credit her or blame her because a lot of the decisions are actually being taken outside the foreign ministry in the Prime Minister's office.
Yeah, I think if ever there were a case for talent being wasted and not being utilized, it's the case, Sushma Swaraj at the MEA, one of the most senior, capable ministers. If I'm not mistaken, either in your poll or some other channel's poll last year, Sushma Swaraj was the top performing minister. And the fact that she is now somewhere in the middle, even if you've given her a passing score of 3, reflects the fact that all the initiatives are being handled by the Prime Minister. You never hear anything from the EAM. This is unique, perhaps, in the last 60 years, that you have a foreign minister who is not even empowered to give interviews or to articulate Indian foreign policy. So, if at all, there is the score is less than what Indian foreign policy accomplishments in the last 2 years suggest, I think the Prime Minister needs to ask why is he wasting or why is he not utilizing talent that he has before him?
No, so Rajdeep, is Siddharth being unfair when he says she's not empowered to do press conference? Because as you well know, it's a decision she says she's taken herself. No one's told her. Modi's not told her don't do press conferences. She says, my work will do the talking. I don't need to.
My work will do the talking for someone who for most of her political career was one of the most communicative politicians that India has seen. I mean, it seems strange. I think Siddharth has a point. I think she's become a tragic figure in a way. Here is someone, one of the most talented communicators that Indian politics has thrown up in the last 20 years, who simply doesn't communicate. In a government, with a Prime Minister who is in favor of constant communication.
She's active on social media.
She may be active on social media, but you would like to see a foreign minister who communicates more. More than that, let's look at the specifics. What's happening in the neighborhood? Look at Nepal. Look at Pakistan. Look at now even with Myanmar. Look at Sri Lanka. The fact is, except for Bangladesh, in the subcontinent at the moment, India's foreign policy is under serious question. Now, who is to blame? Is it MEA and the foreign minister, or the PMO, which seems to be handling foreign policy by proxy? So I think Sushma Swaraj will never get credit when credit is deserved, and she has done, she's worked very well on the human angle of external affairs diplomacy when it's come to Yemen and other parts of the world. But when it comes to actual strategic policy decisions, she's kept out of the loop. So how are you ever going to give her 4 on 5? It's a tragic situation. And you ask me, is she deliberately not, choosing not to communicate? Maybe so, because she fears that when she does an interview, the first question will be asked, what are your relations with Narendra Modi like? And I don't know whether she can give an honest answer at the end of the day.
Yeah, but she's a diplomat now. She can find a way of answering that question as well. We've spoken about the Panchratna, we've spoken about the performers, but there's also a whole bunch of laggards. Who does India Today believe are the worst performing ministers of the Modi government? This is what we'll get you when we come back on the other side of a very quick break. There will be some heartburn, make no mistake about it, but like we've looked and acknowledged the role of the performers, we must also look at who India Today believes are the ministers who've simply failed to pull their weight. That and more when we return on this special broadcast on the other side of what's going to be a very quick break. Stay with us.